Welcome to the OFX podcast. I'm Dave Claxton, and along with me, as always, is our plucky practitioner of plyometrics, Bethany McChesney.
Lucky.
Lucky. Come on, that's a bet. I love that one.
That's funny.
Actually, so before we get to other things, so we bought a tent trailer for this weekend for our little race. We figured let's just run out and grab one for our racecation. So of course we went and grabbed a used one anyway. We just thought it was very plucky. It just had this will to keep going. It's probably too old to keep going, but it's just determined and plucky. So that inspired your name today.
Oh, I see.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, it's been a really busy last few weeks. Lots of events going on. Trying to keep on top of things, but it's been good.
All right, so let's start with the Olympics because they're done now. So
bit of withdrawal. It's the one time when I can turn on the TV and watch track all day long, and that never happens ever. Track is never on TV, so it's a special time for me. Once every 4 years.
Can you not find it on YouTube though? Like, could you not watch like Diamond League on YouTube and stuff like that?
Yeah, you can. Sometimes they live stream stuff. Yeah. There's some of the big races too in the States, they will, but a lot of them you have to pay for subscriptions to different things. So,
by the way, I'm just really impressed that I knew what the Diamond League thing was. That was big for me.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Yeah, that's where the money's made.
I probably know more about Highland Games than I do about track and field. All right, so from the track side, what was the big stories from the track side because now you can like go hindsight, you can review, you can see everything now that it's all unfolded. What were some of the biggest stories that hit home with you?
We did amazing on the track this year. I think we've won the most medals Canada has ever won. And we had a gold medal in the men's 200. Which was a very exciting race to watch. Andre DeGrasse.
His second half kick was unreal.
Yeah, he's definitely a closer. And we saw that in the 100 too, where he was gaining, and it just wasn't enough. There wasn't enough space yet to catch them. So kind of showed you maybe what was coming in the 200. And same thing, he came off that curve, not out in the lead, and then he just closed hard in that last 100. So well-deserved gold. It's about time for him.
Do we get to play the card? Like, do you remember when Donovan Bailey won the 100 meter? And then
were you?
I was around. I was alive. I was there.
No, I mean, like they always ask, where were you? Yeah.
I don't remember where I was, but I remember it. And then I also remember our friends from the States saying, no, he's not the fastest man alive. Michael Johnson is.
Right. In the 200. Mm-hmm.
So do we get to do that now?
Oh, where they race off and do a 150 instead?
I'm down for another one of those. That was great.
No.
Incidentally, the guy who wins a 100-meter dash is the fastest man alive. I still think that's just.
Well, it's kind of what they've always called it, right?
It should be. It should,
Yeah.
Awesome 100. That was amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome to watch. Yeah, and then we had in the men's 5,000, so Muhammad Ahmed got the silver medal there, and he was also a medal favorite in the 10,000, and he really went for it in the 10,000, and it was such a tight race, and he ended up 5th. So I think he came back really strong with his heart set on medaling in that 5,000. So an awesome job there in that one. And then we have Gabrielle Stafford, who again really went for it in the women's 1500 and was so close to a medal as well. And she came up 5th, which nothing wrong with 5th place at the Olympics, but again, she had medals on her mind too. Then we had our 4x1 team. They also won a bronze medal. And again, we had Andre DeGrasse pull up from behind. They think they came off after that last handoff, and they're in 5th place maybe, and he just pulled it out. And again, always super close in those relays, probably the most exciting races to watch on the track.
His closing speed is just unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Were there other track ones that we had, or was those are the main ones?
Those are the medals here that I can think of. And then we also have our marathon. So our women, so Melindy Elmore, who is 42 years old, she was quite a story for me. So she actually went to the Olympics in 2004 in the 1500. She was kind of an idol of mine growing up, and then she retired from track and field, went and did triathlon stuff for about 10 years, and then she ran a marathon, I'm going to say maybe 3 years ago, and ran an Olympic qualifying standard time. And then she took another year or so, probably less, and trained, and then she smashed our Canadian record in the marathon at a race in Houston, and basically solidifying her spot on our Olympic team. So she came back now 17 years after her first Olympic appearance, and she cracks into the top 10 in the women's marathon, our highest ever performing Canadian marathon female at the Olympic Games.
At 42.
42 years old, 2 kids. Yeah. Not playing the mom card, Dave. Yeah, it's just, I love it when people who are seemingly past what we would say is the ideal prime still do such amazing things. And not far behind Melindy was Natasha Wodak, who was a 10,000 meter runner at the Rio Olympics in 2016 and pulled off again an amazing qualifying time in the marathon and got herself on that squad. And 13th place is nothing to be upset about in the marathon.
Oh, geez, like it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and with that too, that race, something like 17% of the women dropped out. So they moved it earlier in the morning. It was super hot, I think above 30 degrees by the end of the race, which, if you know, running in those kind of temperatures, especially a marathon, is not ideal at all. Typically, our big marathons are run when it's under 10 degrees. So you're looking like October, November-ish. So it's super not ideal. So to run in those conditions, and on average, people were running 8 to 10 minutes slower than their best times just because of the conditions. So,
and yeah, I found, for me, some of the bigger stories I really was into was the women's soccer.
Yes, yeah,
just amazing. I mean, I don't know, but it does raise a couple. So the women's soccer and was big for me, and Penny Oleksiak.
Yeah. I
think I got that right. Anyway.
Yeah.
So now she's the leading medal holder for Canada of all time. Just unreal. And she's still quite young, isn't she? She's still got, like, this was her second Olympics, I believe.
Yeah, and she was 18 at her first Olympics.
Yeah, so she's got a lot of time. She's unreal. But one of the questions that came up to me as watching the Olympics, what's wrong with our men?
No, just how awesome are our women this year?
I know, but guys, come on, step it up just a little bit.
It was definitely all about the Canadian women this year.
Yeah, they were amazing. It was awesome. I loved it. I did not watch the closing ceremonies because I'll be honest, the opening ceremonies just bagged so much that I didn't bother.
I know, they were slightly disappointing, and it's really too bad because the athletes had to be on a plane within 36 hours of their event finishing. So they really didn't. You couldn't really be at the closing ceremonies unless you were in the last 2 days. So
yeah, and I mean, without the crowd, it just loses the luster. I kind of think maybe they should have saved the money and just called it a day. Okay, so Olympics were great. Moving on. So I want to ask you about this because I know you don't know anything about it. So I know you didn't get a chance to watch Savage, and like most Savage races, it comes down to that rig at the end that they always put at the end, and it's really difficult. This time, and I'll just say, there was a cheese board, then like a 2x4 hanging vertically, then a cargo net to go under, and then essentially from there, you had to grab on a bar and do a 6-foot lache, and then ring the bell, right? And you couldn't just, like, if you were tall, you couldn't just swing and kick the bell from the first bar because the way they positioned the other bar and the way they positioned the bell, it wasn't going to work. So you had to commit to the lache, and it took forever to get.
Could you put your feet? You could put your feet on the mesh.
Yeah.
Was the 2x4? Did it have foot things, or did you just kind of wrap yourself around it?
No foot things. You could wrap yourself around it. Yeah.
Oh boy.
So yeah, there was definitely some grip challenges. But the big thing, I mean, grip is what it is. We know you can develop grip strength, but Not many people in OCR practice laches. Is a 6-foot lache, even in the pro women's wave, too far?
That's pretty far, but at least it's just to hit the bell though.
No, you had to land, because there's no way you'd be able to just swing at the bell. You'd have to grab, you'd actually have to land it and then hit the bell after. So bar to bar,
you had to grab the other bar.
Yeah, you'd have to land it. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I have a hard time with this. So when you're talking high risk movements, that type, when you're fatigued and if you're not able to keep those arms in a locked position and you hit that with long arms and you're not keeping those, that's such a high risk thing. Like that's when you just like pull out those shoulders. And I've injured my shoulder many times doing things like this, and to do it at the very end of a race, it's just kind of risky. I don't practice 6-foot laches.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I could have done it at the end of a race. I don't know.
You know me, and I'm all about obstacles and stuff like that. And I agree with you. I think it's too much for OCR. I don't blame them from trying. That's what Savage do. They pushes the limits on the obstacle difficulty, and that's great. But yeah, I think it's too much, and they need to dial it back. I mean, the fact that it took so long to even get 2 women across it, and
is that all that finished?
By the end of the stream, yes.
Oh wow.
So I never went back, and I admit I haven't checked the full standings. I never went back and checked the standings to see, but it was just like, yeah, it was quite literally, and I talked about it with Matt, it was a train wreck. And as soon as I heard 6-foot lache, I knew it would be a train wreck.
Yeah.
Because it's just beyond the earth. Anyway, I was just curious if you thought that was too much, or if that was, hey, build up ladies and become better. I personally think it's too much.
I think it's too much. I train a lot of grip stuff. I don't do laches.
Yeah. Anyway. So the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is me.
Of course you do.
Yeah. So this weekend we finally got to do RX1.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I want to talk about, and this nothing to do with OCR, maybe it does, it's racecation, right? Because we're going on a racecation. We're going away, we're camping. I said, we got the tent trailer, hooked it up the van, off we go. And this is about highway etiquette, okay? So I'm driving, right? I'm in the van, right? I drive a minivan by choice, and I pull out to pass a transport. I'm going 125, so 25 kilometers over the limit, passing a transport. Seems acceptable to me. Guy pulls up right behind me. He wants to go past the transport at 135. That's his business, whatever. I get past the transport, pull back in the other lane. He drives by, swinging his arms around like a moron and yelling and screaming. I don't know. At first, I thought he was saying something was wrong with the trailer because I'm hypersensitive because I'm pulling the trailer. It's brand new for us to pull in. I'm like, so I pull over and I check if everything's fine. So it occurs to me, yep, he's just flipping me off. That's cool. That's great. But I mean, you're allowed to pass people at 25 over the limit. That's acceptable.
Yeah.
It didn't take that long. You have some patience, people. Anyway.
Yeah. I wonder if that type of situation gets people that out of sorts. Like, how do they deal with normal, actual stressful life situations?
Do you think that there should be some kind of psychological evaluation before people get licenses?
Yes.
I never thought of it till now, but now I'm going to start
pushing for
petitioning for psychological evaluations. I'm just worried they're going to take mine away.
Just don't check me.
Don't check me. Okay, so we get to RX1, and I'm going to lay the course out real quick for you because we don't have a ton of time because we have a kick-ass guest, and I don't want to get to her. But so course, 100-meter sprint, which nobody sprinted because we're not stupid. To a 1,500-meter row. To for my division anyway, 120 meter sled push, 120 meter sled pull. And so, and like I said, it was not heavy sled, but the rope was 60 meters long.
Wow.
So it took time.
Rope weight, yeah.
To essentially a 1,700 meter hill climb. So 1,700 meters with about 150 meters of elevation, and then back down to 120 meters of 260-pound tire flips.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how many that was,
Whoa.
but this is the spot here where I bonked. I died because I didn't eat like hardly anything all day. Anyway, so from there you had to drag this fire hose 120 meters back and forth, pull it across, then do a wheelbarrow with it. Like it's essentially like a big, it looks like a sled push or pull with a wheel on the single wheel on the front,
Mhm.
150 pounds. So you had to wheelbarrow that 120 meters, then do these sit up 20-pound ball throws back and forth across 120 meters. Then you're into a whatever.
The Death Valley.
Yeah, well, we called it Death Valley. But so 3 rounds of 10 cleans and 10 surrenders. The cleans at 115 pounds and the surrenders holding a 40-pound ball over your head.
Okay.
So you went through that. Then you went through 3 rounds of 5 pull-ups, 15 wall balls with the 20-pound wall ball, 15 toes to bar, and 1 rope climb for 3 rounds, and then sprint to the finish line. So that was it. No, it's good. It's a really good course. It was really exciting, and it was awesome. I shit the bed and got my ass handed to me because I didn't eat food. Right. I still was competitive. I still hung in there, right, with my division. I still had a legit shot, but honestly, I blew it. So that's cool. But
did the race just take you longer than you expected?
It was breaks. I had to take so many more breaks. When I got to that tire, as soon as I did the first flip, I knew I was in trouble. I was like, and this is the only critique I have of the whole setup, the whole system, everything that went on. The tires were not all uniform.
Oh, okay.
And I made a very, very bad choice.
Oh, okay.
I chose a heavier tire with very little grip to it whatsoever. So everyone, I had to jam my fingers right in under the bottom and get it flipped. So I checked later and I went back and I had other friends coming and I said, do not take the tire I took. Take this one over here. I've tested it. It felt 60 to 70 pounds lighter.
Oh, wow. That's pretty significant.
And it had a lot of grip. Now, was it that much or did it just feel that way? I mean,
right.
I don't know, but it was definitely lighter. And my pals who use that tire, who normally I would say this kind of thing I would probably be a little bit quicker at, they smoked me at it. So it was definitely easier to use. Anyway, so that's my only critique of my only negative statement of the whole deal. So yeah, as soon as I went for that first flip, I knew I am in deep trouble. And it was just so slow. And then I could not, because everything's just bam, bam, bam right after each other to the end, I could not recover. And it was like 35 degrees out. It was just rough. Anyway, but my biggest thing was I didn't fuel properly. I didn't eat because my start time was 2:30 in the afternoon, and I'd never done that. And so
I just kind of an awkward time.
I dropped the ball, but here or there, the event was amazing. Really well run. The hired referees were fantastic. They did a great job. So
you came up to your workout station and a ref came with you?
There was already a ref at the station. And, you know, when you finished, say, doing that, the sit-up ball throw thing, and you came up, then there'd be a ref in the stations waving, okay, come right to their area. And then that ref would go through all the stations with you. He or she would stay with you the whole time. So
there's no way you'd mess up what you were doing?
No. They had the order all set up for you. So they were really, really good. No complaints about any of that. The setup was great. They had music going. They had live commentary. Sebastian, who we had on, he was up on the scaffolding, just play by play and just killing it. We had the most fun ever. It was, I will put it up there as one of my top racing experiences.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm sold. Next year, 45 plus expert division. I'm coming to win that title.
You said it. Yeah, it was said here first.
And I'm going to bring a sandwich. So I'll be ready. It definitely, and I can't wait to get you out to check it out because you are absolutely going to love it. It's fantastic. The pro men and pro women are beyond belief.
Yeah.
Like, so I was doing the 117 pound cleans. The pro men were doing 170 for the same rep counts. You know, I mean, it was just, they were awesome. They were amazing. And I don't remember the women's weight. They might've been the same as mine, the pro women.
Yeah, that's kind of what it sounded like.
Yeah. I don't think there was very many pro women, but the women that were there were awesome. even the expert women, like honestly, everybody there just put everything out there. It was the only time I've ever actually had to lie down in the ground on the middle of a workout.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, at the end, they had chairs in a semicircle across the finish line because you were just crossing the line and it was concrete area, right? Paved area. And you just had to fall over. It was done. We saw one girl, she came in shortly after me. One of our friends had to bring her a chair because all of her friends were holding her up because she just couldn't stand anymore. And they had to slide the chair over to her. She didn't even make it to the chairs.
Yeah.
Because she just left it all out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just amazing. RX1, awesome. Big push to come here to Toronto. It's got to happen.
Yeah. That sounds great. We'll make it happen.
With that all said, I think it's time that we go to our guest. All right. So what we were talking about, there was supposed to be a ninja competition in Milton, right?
Yeah.
And I would do a lot of ninja competitions. So I was supposed to go there, but then we had another race. We went to Quebec and did RX1. And anyway, my son was going to the ninja competition anyway. And he says he gets there. He goes, all the best guys from Ontario are there. It's going to be epic. It's going to be awesome. They're out there. They've already walked through some of the course. They're doing warm-ups and they cancel it.
Why?
One of the employees tested for COVID that morning.
Oh no.
Got it down and sent everybody home. And we're like,
oh no.
I feel like isn't like, that, getting the horses out of the barn after it's already burnt down. Like it's a little too late, isn't it?
Actually, I don't know, man. At the games, people were just testing positive all the time.
Nobody wore a mask.
Really?
Except for like Canadians.
Yeah, the Canadians, like Bukowski would wear a mask around, like Bellner, I think Rolf a little bit. I saw you always did. Thank you. Yeah, it was like you only got tested if you weren't vaccinated.
Yeah.
Everyone that was getting tested were not vaccinated, and then they didn't test us the rest of the time. So.
And they didn't test any or like confirm with any of the fans, and like people are just going straight to the fans afterwards. So like,
it did seem a little odd. And then who was it? Danielle. Oh, they kind of
Brandon.
Yeah, they kind of sequestered her off in her own little area.
Yeah, which I get to a certain extent, but then after that, it was almost like too much. She was getting tested like 2-3 times a day. Like I felt bad for her at like a certain point, but then at the same time, like. She's getting that treatment, and other athletes are probably way more exposed to it than what she was prior, like just seeing all the fans and stuff and not wearing their mask and seeing people that haven't been tested. So it was interesting.
No system's perfect.
Yeah.
I think they were just like going day to day. They really didn't have any like protocol of like, if this happens, like it was kind of like a day to day thing.
I think they managed it as well as they could. Like they had her getting tested all the time and everything like that. But yeah, like they're trying to, they don't want to be liable for it spreading too. So they'd rather over test, I think, at that point, Danielle than under. But
like they didn't test any of the other athletes. Like if you wanted it to be safe, like you would have tested everybody regardless of if they had a vaccine or not. And then the coaches too that are just in the back with all the athletes, like that would have been your protocol. And then testing throughout the weekend, even randomly, like if it was a drug test, would have probably been like a lot safer. Because if you have one person who's a super spreader, like, and then it turns into like a big issue at the event, like.
Yeah.
So maybe kind of in a way they.
Yeah, like I was surprised that like I didn't get tested prior, but like most of the people that were like coming from international destinations had to take a COVID test before entering the States.
Yeah.
Like 72 hours before flying or whatever. But still, like I still feel like it would have been fine just to test the athletes at least prior to the competition. But
I'd be curious to know like what percentage of athletes coming in were vaccinated versus not. Because I've heard a lot where like, especially in the CrossFit community, that more not. Because they feel like they're healthy and well and all of that, doing like the protocols for their them to get through COVID versus like just being sedentary. But even so, like I don't know. It'd be interesting to know what the percentage is.
Mhm.
Do you think secretly they didn't test everyone, not just because, you know, they had it because they're vaccinated and we have all the faith in the world that, you know, that really works, but because they didn't want to find more?
Probably.
Yeah, 100%.
I know they would have
found
they
more.
would have found way more. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Yay, business. So, all right, though, other than that, like, how was your experience? So, I mean, oh, sorry, I didn't introduce you. This is Carolyne Prevost. I mean, she's been on here like 9,000 times already, so everybody knows who she is. And Lexi. How are you, Lexi? Forget Carolyne. How are you doing?
Good. We're good. We're actually just heading back to Canada in a few weeks. We have a couple weeks left in the States. We're still in California right now.
Can you drive back and forth across the border now? Because we just saw the thing. Is it not today?
Today, yeah. So we're bringing 2 dogs back and her car back. So her Jeep this time. So we rented a car to get to California, dropped it off, and then now she'll bring her car back.
We're taking like a different route so it's less boring. So like we're going down through Southern California to the tip of Arizona to visit some friends who live in Scottsdale. And then Carolyne hasn't seen much of these parts of the States. So then we'll go back up through the middle, which is like Texas. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma, very anticlimactic, but like through Missouri and then up that way. So it's like a different path than what we took home. So she gets to knock all of these other states off her visited list.
How many days and how many gyms?
I have it all planned out. So it's like on my it's like my note sheet. And it has like the times. It's from the 20th to the 26th.
But one day
we're staying like in one spot to visit friends. So we'll like stay a full day in one spot. Most of the times it's like 9 to 10 hours of driving on like the longer days with a stop at a gym. And then we have to get like a COVID test 72 hours in advance. So like planning that to where we're
actually
be at.
not going there anymore. So
we'll be home earlier, but still on the 26th, 25th.
So you made this whole schedule, right, Lex?
Yeah.
So you are either the best or the worst person to go camping with, right?
Probably the worst and the best. Like I'm like very OCD on planning. So like when things don't go according to plan, like it stresses me out and makes me anxious.
And I'm like, it's okay. We're going to get there when we get there. And she's like, no, this is where we need to be at this exact time. And
you let her stop to go to the bathroom or no?
Yes.
Yeah. Depends where we're at.
But we're good. Like neither of us has like a small bladder when we travel. So.
We generally could hold it. It's more of the stopping for the dog. Like on the way here, it was like, let's make sure we get out and run him a little bit. And then especially with 2 dogs and one that's more of a puppy, like we just have to make sure she goes to the bathroom. She's learning to like hold better, but like she still has a small bladder.
She hits the white pads now.
But I mean, in the car, she's just like sleeping.
All right, so let's get to the games. You're at the games. You finally got there. I mean, we have already discussed semifinals and all that. Unfortunately, nobody heard it because Bethany screwed it all up. So we don't talk about that anymore.
It's all Bethany's fault.
Bethany not remind me to hit record, and that is her fault.
Can you move your head a little bit, Dave? Yep. Oh, no. Oh, okay.
Please remind Dave to hit record.
Yes.
There we go.
It's been on there since that day. All right, so you get to the games and you had a little bit of preview of what some of the events were going in, and right off the bat you were hit with swim and kayak. How do you feel?
Oh no.
You okay?
Not the Wi-Fi.
Nope.
Oh, there we go. He's back.
You okay?
I don't know if it's ours or yours.
We could still see and hear you, so I think it might be you.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll say, so just like I said before, you got there and you get hit with 1 mile swim, 3 mile kayak. How you feeling?
Nervous. Was really nervous for the swim because that was the longest open water swim that I've ever done. I think prior to that was like 800 meters open water with a wetsuit in a triathlon 3 years ago, maybe two or 3 years ago. and like the wetsuit kind of like brings you higher and you just feel a little bit more safe. Yeah, and then we're like 80 athletes, or a little bit less than 80 athletes for the start. So I was like nervous like on like where do I put myself so that I'm not like getting kicked by these fins. I also wasn't sure whether like the athletes were gonna be like yanking the fins off people. Like you just don't know how people are. And you had to swim with the fins. And if you didn't come back with the fins on, and like it was an extra like I don't know, an extra swim little lap that you had to do, and I'm like there's no way I'm doing any extra swimming lap. I hope no one takes my fins away. I didn't think the fins even helped me much. Like I think if you're a good swimmer, the fins helped you. If you were a bad swimmer, like you don't know how to kick anyways to like really use them to your advantage. At least I didn't know how to use them to my advantage. I was like second last out of the water.
And like before we got there, we had been swimming quite a bit, like twice a week.
Yeah.
She PR'd like her distance swim to a mile. So she was able to do like over a mile in the pool back and forth. But like open water swimming is completely different. Like learning how to sight, how you should swim, like how your breathing patterns change like in open water. So I think that was an adjustment for her, which kind of slowed her down on the swim piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like when we would swim together training in the pool, I was like mostly fine. And like I felt really good in the pool. Then when we got to Madison and it was like obviously open water and like the algae was just like gross. Like you're just picking up like stuff every time. Like it's like on my face, like everywhere. And just timing like the breathing and the sighting. Like I think I just like was significantly slower than when I'm in a pool. But I made up a lot of time like on the kayak. Like I was way behind people. And I managed to pass like 8 girls on the kayak and like at least like 4 or 5 guys. But I came from so far behind that like you can only do so much work on the kayak. And like part of me is happy I made a lot of moves on the kayak, but then it also like was a lot of work to like pass 8 people and not really get that many more points. Mm-hmm. Like it was a pretty low-ish finish. So it's like, what is it worth if you after that your grip is shot? Like my right shoulder felt so off, like in like the rotator cuff, and I never have any shoulder issues ever. And I remember like telling Lex, I was like, I think I did something in my shoulder. Like I'm having trouble like lifting it because it's a different pattern that you just train. And like we went kayaking prior actually a few times here in California prior to the games because we had guessed that it was going to be kayak actually. But there's a difference between like practicing the motion like on the water here and then like racing. So I think like the technique is obviously I'm not as efficient and like it fired up my shoulders and grip. And if you saw most of the events this weekend, it was all a lot of upper body and pulling.
So she did what she could on the swim.
Yeah, I
made up time on the kayak. Like you knew it wasn't going to be like a great event for
It's not beer, by the way. It's Crystal Light. And it looks like I'm just having a beer right now.
This is beer, by the way.
It looks like we're drinking the same thing.
Cheers. I was actually proud.
Like not a strong event, but like you finished where
I finished like where I wanted to finish, I guess, on that event. Like it was what it was. Like I'm not going to win a swim event, and especially not a mile. I just think I didn't think it was necessary for it to be a mile personally. Like I think you're just beating a dead horse. Like the good swimmers are already way ahead. Like we're so far behind at that point.
I have decided that swim and kayak is culturally biased against Canadians and that it's totally fixed for Tia to win it. And that next year I'm going to petition for an ice skating race. And I think
rollerblade or something. Like
I think that's appropriate. No, honestly, it's gimmicky and it's stupid. I think and it was the most boring event.
I didn't think I was any fitter than anyone I was passing. Let's just say that. I was a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more efficient, had a little bit more experience maybe than someone. But like I didn't think that like me beating someone in that I was any fitter. Like I think swimming and kayak is very technical. Like
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So like Dave's background's what, like Navy SEAL or something. So like they use fins and like they have long events. So like
it just to me it's, I get annoyed that every year at the games they start almost every single time with like long swimming endurance event. It would be nice to like
have some like CrossFit at the front end too.
Yeah, like more CrossFit stuff at the front end, because starting with like a bad finish, like it's discouraging, and it's like it's not a way to like get the momentum going. Like some athletes, like if you get a couple good starts, like all of a sudden like you have confidence, you're attacking some workouts a little bit differently. You just feel better about yourself going into events. But like when you're just kind of hit like right away with a hard workout that's like not in your wheelhouse, and like swimming and kayak, it's just a tough way to start. But I thought I made the most of it. I was like pretty happy with that. It was about where I expected. I'm not a swimmer. I PR'd my swim. I survived.
I don't know, Beth, what's your take on that? I'm obviously not a fan of that stuff.
Yeah, no, I think it's silly. Like, you train so hard for your sport, and those are two very specific things that have massive amounts of skill to them. So it's like there's so many girls in there that are D1 swimmers or high school, like that were like swimming all through high school. Like,
or you grow up in an area that's keen to swimming, right? Like when you live in the area that's like snow most of the year, you're not getting to swim year round.
You can't do open water swim in Toronto like all year round. Like you're in a pool, and for the past year, everything was closed.
Yes.
And like Lake Ontario equal levels where it's close to me to swim are always bad. Like it's not doing that much open water, and it's cold half the time. Like it's just, I can swim as much as I could this year, but I'm not going to beat people that are D1 swimmers or high school level swimmers. Like
as soon as the pool's open, we were there, but it's like a month before the games, and you're like, okay, well, we'll do what we can. Like we're swimming twice a week and getting as much as we can, but you can't like make that your only fitness training.
No, like to me, like people beating like on the swim, I'm like, okay, like it's a technical thing. Like Pat Vellner losing on a swim, like doesn't mean he's not fit. Like there's certain like technique. I mean, for him,
if it wasn't for the swim event, he would have won.
But he said it wasn't the swim, it was the kayak. Like for him, like he just didn't get the kayak until it was kind of too late. It's like, that's dumb. Like that guy should not be like finishing 35th in an event. Like he's like one of the fittest in the world. But it's a very skill-based event. Some would say it shows athleticism. I think there's other ways to get to there through athleticism.
You're right.
But I mean, you kind of do with you do with what's given. Like they're not going to change it. Swimming is going to pop up every single year at the games. Some sort of paddle sport.
It would be interesting to be like, okay, let's do a 50-meter swim in a pool and then get out and do some CrossFit 50-meter swim. Get out. They did that. They've done 2 years ago. Or in 2021.
And it was less about the swim. It was more like all the other movements. Yeah, assault bike things. Changed it up a little bit. Or like if they did like a 200-meter, 250-meter swim, come back, do some burpees, other things. 3 rounds for time. You know, it makes it a little bit more into like a WOD. You have a chance to catch up. Like I had no chance to catch up on that swim event. Like there was none. Like they were like,
we were looking for Carolyne in the water.
5 to 10 minutes in front of me. Like I'm not, unless they're literally lounging on the kayak, like you're not making up time. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I'd love to see, like when they did it for, I think it was 2020 when it was just the 5 of them, and they had the in the pool, then out of the pool, then on the, you know, that was entertaining.
It was very entertaining. Like more captivating for an audience to watch. Like you don't want to watch an hour and a half swim kayak event.
And that's typically why they put it on the front end of the weekend, is because people don't like to watch the long endurance event. So they usually put it on the Wednesday or like on the Thursday when the fans aren't quite there yet. Normally prior, I mean, this year the Masters and the age group were earlier on in the week. So there were more fans, but normally, that's one of the reasons why they put it early on.
By the way, watching the old guys on YouTube was awesome.
They're awesome.
They were freaking amazing. I'm like, I'm going for that when I'm 65. That's a goal for me now.
They're so jacked.
Yeah.
They were amazing. They were fantastic.
Yeah.
So you come out of there, you're in a bit of a hole. And so what events come next? What happens from there? Where do you go? Oh, wait, one question. One question. Did you get unfair recovery treatment getting to go into like the Wisconsin locker room and use that area?
On the off day, maybe. But joking. To be honest, like almost every other individual athlete brings their massage therapist, their physio. They have people coming into their hotel room. They have everything lined up for them. Like I didn't have a single person there with me except for Lex and Paul. And you probably won't know how to like do everything to like if there's something going on. Yeah, so like everyone else has like their people. So I felt like I evened up the game a little bit.
You had different people.
Yeah.
It's cool to see the locker.
Yeah. Yeah, she hadn't seen the rink yet, so it was nice for her to see where I played and like just how nice it is. Yeah.
Sponsored by Wisco this
weekend. Yeah, she got a bunch of gear from Wisconsin too.
I like, you know how everybody puts out their games gear on the bed and like look at all this CrossFit game stuff. So I did that with the Wisconsin stuff.
Hockey stuff that she got.
It was like sponsored by the Wisconsin women's hockey team. Gave me like shoes and slides,
shorts,
sports
bra shirts,
long sleeves.
She had her own little kit of gear.
All right, so you recovered in the locker room. You're having free beer.
No, that was on the off day. I didn't go there on day one. Day one, the workouts were literally like as soon as you were done, you had to go back to the venue. Literally, like you got changed, warm up right away, go. Event 2 was the sled, which so on paper they had released information of this prior. They had written 42 muscle ups. We didn't know which kind, and that it ended up being 48 total muscle ups instead of 42. We had half of them being ring, half of them being bar. I had no problem with either or. I liked both of them. The sled was like pretty heavy, but it was pretty short distance, so it was kind of irrelevant in the workout. The pig flip, we expected to be like maybe like 50 yards at least, or like 10 flips, and it was only 5. It was like we practiced with tires that were much heavier than that. Like the flip and the sleds were not the workout. It was all about the ring and the bar muscle ups and how much you want to break those up and kind of your muscle endurance of those. So you've done a bunch of kayaking and swimming, which is all pulling, and then you're going to pull again with all of those bar and ring muscle ups. Normally that would be a really good event for me. I just caught a bunch of no reps on the ring muscle ups for lockouts and on the bar, and I still wasn't sure. Like I've looked at the videos multiple times. I didn't see anything that was like wrong personally with them. Like I'm in lockout position. She was saying that I was locking out as I was moving backwards, which is not something I normally do. Like I don't usually pull back at the same time. Like I'm usually there and then drop down. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. It made me basically come down more than I wanted to, hold at the top more than I wanted to on certain rings until you wait for the good count. So it just kind of exerted more muscle fatigue than I would have expected. And I probably lost like a minute and a half-ish, just at least almost 2 minutes just there off of those extra sets. Then you come back, only 5 tire flips, and then the sled. The sled, so like a bunch of girls got time capped on that event. But like I sprinted the last bit to try to make the time cap, which I did, and it blew up my legs because I just like was running because I saw the time cap was almost done. Just made it in time, I think like 4 or 5 seconds under the time cap, but at the expense of my legs being completely shot, my calves, my quads, because I was in a race with a girl that was just ahead of me and she had stopped. So I passed her. So like half of the field are like 16 girls that didn't get capped. A lot of them don't have that feeling in their legs because they didn't do that sled. So they get capped and they feel fairly good going into the next sprint event. I get capped right away, and then I want to go in the cold tub that's in the back, and they're like, nope, we're going to go run the race backwards of for the run. So I'm like, oh my God, I literally can't even walk right now. And like that, but like I said, the sled was heavy, but that's not where the event was, but it still blew up my legs. I could barely jog back to the area, and like I had trouble warming up for the 500 meters. Like my legs were just not recovering. And I was drinking a lot of water throughout the day, but I don't think I was, my electrolytes were off completely. Like my body was shaking. I didn't know what was wrong with my body. Like I was feeling so off. And I don't know if that started on the kayak, being on the water for so long, and then starting my dehydration there. I've never traditionally done super well in the heat. And I just like, something was just off in my body. And then like everyone's warming up for the run. I'm like, my legs aren't coming back to me. Normally, like, okay, yeah, it hurts. 10 minutes later, you're feeling fine. And it just like, something was just like not going. So like, I barely warmed up for the run. 500 meters is not.
They called it a sprint.
It's not a sprint. To me, like I'm a sub 200 meters, but ideally 100 meter sprinter or less. Like that's 40-yard dash, 60 meters indoor sprinter, or like 100 meter. Like you give me that event instead of the 500, top 3, easy.
But 500 meters is like a distance that you have to understand
the pacing.
When to stride, when to kick. Like you think about 400 meters is the worst race to run, and like
4 to 800
in a track and field, like it killed me when they used to tell me to run that. I'd be like, oh god, no thanks. But I would run it, and it's like it's just awful.
Hard.
When you add an extra 100 meters on there, it changes when you're supposed to put that extra kick in.
I was convinced it wasn't going to be a loop, like a circle thing. I was convinced it was on the field, suicide style. So when I practiced my pacing for the 500, I practiced a lot of like going down to the field, cutting, like turning, cutting back, like 5 lengths basically of like 110 yards. It was 550 yard sprint. And I'm like, why would they use yards unless it's on the field? And it's not very showy of the race to be around the stadium and then just the little sprint. So I was convinced it was a suicide style, some sort of thing on the field. And then when it was like
all different ways, like
we
on the field, we went to your field and practiced again, where it was like
suicide,
just like turning. And that would have been better for her too, because you add that more agility piece of it, and like having to turn off one leg and pivot, like that's an athletic move, right? So like people who don't have that training, like it's a lot more difficult for them to turn off one leg. So like that would have even been better for you.
So then when we're jogging back to the start line, I put my watch on and I'm like, okay, I want to know where 150 meters is left, because I am not going to go towards like the front and then like the way that I can pace the 500 is basically stick with the pack at 150 sprint. Because if I don't have a kick at the end, I'm completely useless in running. Like that's all I have is a sprint. So we get to the first corner. I'm like, okay, this is around 100 meters. We get to the second corner. Wow, the second corner is exactly 150. Then we get to the straightaway after that to the 500. I'm like, okay, this is actually exactly 500. So they're not lying, because sometimes they give distances and you're like, no, those are not actually the distances. So I had it perfect. I'm like, okay, the second corner was 150 left. But when you're doing it in reverse, it wasn't the second corner that I had to sprint. It was the first corner. I had to do my sprint, my like to really get away from the pack. So we start and I'm just kind of sitting behind the pack. And then I'm like, okay, first corner, good. Okay, I'm still in there. Okay, now they're starting to speed up. Okay, second corner. And then I'm like already turning towards the finish line. I'm like, oh shit. I passed like one girl, but like it was too late. It was too late. And in that event, like 1 second is like 10 spots almost, like 1 to 2 seconds. But that's a sprint, right? Like a sprint, 1 to 2 seconds is significant.
And like also if you're in a slower heat, like it's gonna affect you more. So like her heat was probably the slowest heat out of all of them, like even the one that went before her and then the following heat. So like regardless of where she finished, like even if she finished 4th out of 5 or however, like you're going off the pace of other girls too. So like everybody, like even the first place girl in that heat was like 6th place, you know, on the next heat. So like, but like it makes a difference to go with somebody who's faster.
Yeah, I didn't kick early enough. I felt horrible going into it. I wouldn't have done that well anyways. Like that's not my race. So there's like people are like, oh, this is a sprint event, you're gonna do great. And I'm like, it's not a sprint event. Like there's a reason why like Bolt doesn't run the 400. Like He runs the 100, 200, like DeGrasse 100, 200, like they're not like 400 is a different beast. 500 is a different type of run. I think like normally I would have been like middle to the first third in there. Like it's not my forte. And at that point, like the body's just like not cooperating. My legs feel off. I'm still like shaking. I'm like, what is going on with my body? And I'm discouraged. Like at this point, like number 2 should have been better. Number 3 should have been better. 1 didn't start off well. And I'm just like, what's going on here? Like, this is a horrible start.
And then they announced the last event for the day, which was the 10 through 1.
Oh yeah. Then the last event that day, which is right after again, like basically you get that done there. Then you have opening ceremonies. You're standing on the field. It's super hot. You're just like, I'm trying to sit down and like drink a lot of water. But again, I'm not getting electrolytes in. I'm just drinking water. Then they announced the last event, which should have been fine for me. Like wall walks, I like. It was heavy thrusters. Like 135 isn't like light. But I just didn't have confidence in myself. Like I was resting so much on the wall walk. I was knocking the wind out of myself on the wall walk, coming down hard. It was slippery. It was so humid in there. I had trouble breathing. And I just was like checked out at that point. Like I was just like frustrated with my day, frustrated with myself. And like it's so much mental in CrossFit. Like physically, best shape of my life, but like mentally wasn't a good day that day. And like I was like just not confident. Like I wasn't attacking the bar. Like that workout was more of a wall walk event than it was a thruster. And going in, I was more scared of the thruster, so I was like cautious on the wall walk to save myself for the thruster. But then when I was doing the thrusters, I was like, okay, like they're fine. I'm going to do them in 2 sets until I got to the 6s and went unbroken and had no problem every single time. Like they were fast. And then I was like second guessing myself every single time.
And the wall walk's a pretty good movement for you. Like it would have been fast, but you were just resting so much in between.
Yeah.
I
wasn't trusting my fitness to like attack the workout more and be like, okay, yes, it's hard. Like you're tired, but you're not failing. Like I didn't get a single no rep. Like I'm not even close to missing a rep. So it's kind of like that. You finish the workout, you're tired and stuff, but you're like, gosh, I need like gotta push more type thing. But you look at the first day event and it was like upper body pulling in the water. The second workout, the tire flip and the sled were kind of irrelevant in the whole thing. Another upper body pulling. Running was whatever. And then more upper body. This time was pressing. So a lot of upper body. My strength as an athlete is normally lower body and explosive sprinting, true sprinting. Like a lot of the events that I would have liked, like a lot of what is the most programmed CrossFit style thing is normally like a gymnastics with a weightlifting. Mm-hmm. And especially like a gymnastics bar with a weightlifting is like one of the most programmed things traditionally. And there was none of that. Not a single WOD of what I did, the 10 events had like the traditional like gymnastics pulling with a like barbell, which normally like those are the types that I do very well. There was barely any squatting throughout the whole games. There was a lot of upper body pulling and monostructural work. Running and machines were like limiting factors for me in a lot of the events. So I mean, it's just a good kind of like, this is where I'm at. I've gone better at those things, but I'm just not at the level I need to be competitive with those girls. Like I didn't get time capped on a single event. I finished every event. Every event was like in the 20s basically, except for like the squat clean event. But I just didn't have like that like wheelhouse workout. And if you don't have that like top 10 finish somewhere, like a couple of them, you just don't get rewarded on the leaderboard. So like, yeah, I needed like 2 or 3 top 10 finishes. And I just didn't get them this time. Like there's a few things like execution that I didn't quite do, like obviously on the wall walks, the no reps on the ring muscle up, like that could have been a top 15 easily normally. And it wasn't, I think it was like 20 or 19 on that one, but it could have been like top 12 or something. Yeah, then the next day we had off go to the rink and recover a little bit. Legs were super sore. Like as much as like the legs were no factors in terms for me, I thought like on the event, I think the thrusters, I bottom out a lot and I always get sore when I do thrusters, like super sore. And it was heavy. But yeah, so
Did like ice?
we did ice tub with the hot tub. We had Normatex on the legs that I borrowed from the women's locker room.
You got worked on?
I got worked on at the venue a little bit. But at that point you're sore and it's almost too late. Like you can do recovery, but like you're just at that soreness that it doesn't matter what you do. Like you're
It's
still
just
gonna be
more
sore.
about like fueling and hydrating to
Yeah.
get ready for like 5 more events.
Yeah, so that day I drank a lot more electrolytes. Added those to my drinks, which the day before, like I only drank water. So yeah, so it was just a bad day one, like body wise, execution wise on a few things, and then combination of also like not the best workouts for me.
So you're going into the next day and you've got like the sword of Damocles hanging over you with the cuts because
Yeah.
and we'll talk about cuts and how we feel about those later.
Yeah.
But so you've got that situation and you're saying you're not in the best mental frame of mind. So is this almost like and Beth,
Stressful. It's stressful. It's weighing
like
down on me. Like I couldn't
anxiety
sleep.
almost.
Right? Like I had trouble sleeping. Like I just was like mad at myself for day one, stressing about the cuts. I'm like, oh my God, like I can't think about like anything else, but like I had trouble like being like normally like when I compete, it's like one event's done, okay, it's done. Who cares? Like good or bad, get mad about it, whatever, forget about it, worry on the next event, try to maximize your points there. But like it just kept lingering in my mind, like some of the mistakes I made, and then just being mad at myself, and then being like, shit, like I'm in this position now where I can get cut. And it's just like it's stressful.
But
like you try not to think about it, but like it is on your mind. Like when you're close to the line, like you're like looking at the events that are next and you're like, wow, number 5 is not that great of an event for me. So I'm like, again, like you want to start the next day like with a wheelhouse workout, a good start, and it's like a workout probably on paper that was the worst one for me.
Yeah.
Was that one. It was 4 rope climbs. The ropes were really thick.
And it's a 20-foot.
And it's a 20-foot. So being small.
But your rope climbs aren't bad.
My rope climbs aren't that bad, but I can't match the girls in the ski. Like I just wasn't, those girls were pulling way harder, like, especially tall, bigger bodies, are just pulling the ski harder. The bag was kind of like somewhat irrelevant in the workout. You're kind of all just jogging with that Husafel sandbag.
Yeah.
So it's all about maintaining your grip and your, again, monostructural, your engine for the skier. So,
and like we had practiced that one and she PR'd by like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like during the event. But again, like it's like we could say, hey, do this pace on a skier. And like she could only do what she can. So like we're like, all right, let's minimize the rest on the rope climb because we know you're not going to be able to maintain the same pace on the skier as the other girls. But even then, it's like she just still like she could do what she can, but she's going to be behind.
Like I wasn't mad at myself at that one. Like I kind of did what I could. Girls were just better at those 2 movements than me. Like they're just better. Like there's not so much, like there's not anything that you can really change going into that workout. Like it is what it is. Like I'm not gonna all of a sudden pull the same as some of those girls. But yet another workout, upper body pulling, with monostructural endurance. Another long workout.
So, and like I said, it might be a good time to almost pivot and talk about it. Like, so now it's you just said it, it's so much more mental than anything else.
Yeah, I'm just getting, like, at this point, I'm just getting frustrated because it's like, I'm just not, like, I'm like waiting for a workout to get released. That's like, come on, like, give me something. And then we go to the Coliseum and they hand it, I see all the weights. I'm like, freaking right, we're going to deadlift. Because it was the men's weights that were out. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to deadlift. Here we go. I'm going to change it. And
I thought it was a deadlift ladder.
Oh, I thought it was deadlift ladder. I was going to light up. I was like, give me reps, give me weight. I don't care. I want deadlift. And then they announced clean. And I was like,
Oh, that's
all
good.
right. I was like, I like the clean. Cool. I like this. And then he opens the curtains and it's like, run with clean. So I'm like, ugh. It was like five
So it's like 250-meter run,
Five
come back
round-
in,
yeah.
one clean.
one
and do
power
that for
clean.
5 rounds for the first one.
Yeah, the first so there's 2 different versions of it. One was a lighter clean, one was a heavier clean. And it was 250 meters of running in between each. So 5 rounds. So you're looking at 1,250 meters of running. And every single time, like you walk in, the clean is heavy that you have to think about it.
But every girl is
Every girl is power cleaning. Basically, like you walk up to it, power clean, you get it, you run back. So it wasn't like for the girls' weights were lighter than the boys. The boys like 315, I don't think is equivalent to 205 personally.
Yeah.
Like they have to think about a lot more for the power clean than we have to think about the 205 at this level of where the girls are at and the boys.
But this was like a mistake by programming because like they had this very aggressive time cap for the guys.
6.
And they realized that only like
2 guys
two
finished it.
guys are finishing. And so they're like, oh shoot, this is not working well. I don't think they measured the distance that they were supposed to run because they said it was a 200-meter run. It was
And
over
it gets
200
it gets
meters.
longer every time because you're running into the stadium.
So like nobody was hitting the time cap. So they extended it for the girls. But because that weight is so like, I shouldn't say easy, like for the top girls, for everyone
Yeah.
there, it's
Unless-
everybody could power clean it. So like
Yeah.
it's about the run. It's like how fast can you run a 250-meter run come
Consistently.
in and like consistently or get faster.
So it's not even
And,
like
like,
a 250. It was like 1,250. It's like who can run basically the 1,250 meters as fast as you can by and have a fairly good power clean. Like unless you were like pretty weak in the field, which I mean there was a few that didn't.
It's
that
just
didn't
a
clean
running
it, but like
workout.
it was a running workout. Like it was. If you, I mean, you needed to be like somewhat strong, but it wasn't that heavy.
No.
Then the second part was a heavier squat clean ladder to 230, which I think should have been a little bit heavier, to 235. Because a few years ago when they did 350 for the guys, it was 235 for the girls. They stopped at 230, which was fine. I love squat cleans. I wanted it heavier, but it was what it was. And then you got to run again. And I was like, one could have been like more fitness based. One could have been like more like, I mean, the second one was more about the barbell. They reduced the run to around 110 meters, let's say.
So I said like to make it better, it should have been like an air runner, right? So 200 to 300 meter buy-in, and then you go into the clean ladder. You're winded, and it's who can race through 5 barbells fast, right? And then it's more about the barbell, and it makes it fun for fans to watch. When you're just watching someone run, come in and clean a bar, and then run back out, and you're like, okay, when they're gonna come back in? Oh, there's somebody, like, yay, they're power clean. Like it's not as like suspenseful for an audience, but if you just say, here's a sprint, how fast can you run this first 200 and then clean every weight after that? Like I think that would have been better to see.
Because sometimes when you do ladders, like obviously it's not always the strongest person that wins. Sometimes you can just have a bar that bounced a little bit higher and you didn't jump as much, and then you lose out on a placement. So at least with like a run, it separates the field a little bit more, but I don't think it needed to be like another run event, like run, squat. Like I decided to wear my lifters, so I'm running like in my lifters, the 110, whatever it was, meters.
That second one was better for you.
The second one was much better for me. That was my best finish, was 8th place. And like, I finished that one being like, I should have pushed the run more. The weights for me was fine. I felt better almost as I got along in the squat clean. But yeah, again, you had more running that I didn't think was necessary in that workout as much. Like, I don't think you needed all that running again, another 500-ish meter. Like we just did a 500, you just did 1,250 meters. We're going another 500-ish meters, which I don't think was necessary. Like, I think, like she said, like maybe a buy-in of like 200 meters to kind of separate a little bit the bars, and then you kind of go through it if you even needed that run. So that one was better. I was starting to gain a little bit more momentum at that point. Then we get to a handstand walk in the warm-up area. It was the first time I tried it. They had it for us for a few minutes for us to practice. Didn't miss any. I felt really good. I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. Hopefully I'm like doing well. We get to the heat. Perfect execution on the way there. I'm like in the lead half the time with this other girl, Bailey. We're kind of like trading back and forth the lead. On the way back, I'm feeling great. I have one more obstacle. And then I just didn't, so I got up the stairs fine. I got to the parallel. I didn't lean enough into it. So then I came back to the stairs, missed it. Like basically came back, tried it again, did basically the same mistake again. Wasted around over a minute on that obstacle. The third time I got it and then walked to the finish line. But had I not made that mistake, that was again in a top 10. So I could have had like 2 top 10 events. I pushed it a little bit because I was going for the win in the event. Me and this other girl were basically tied. She ended up getting 7th in the event on that one. And I was right there with her at the last obstacle if I didn't miss. But it was kind of like, you got to take a chance and go up because you're so far behind. But like I took the chance, I missed. I didn't feel like it was like I was fatigued. It was more just like I just didn't, lack of like thought on the handstand to like not lean as much into it. Because I felt physically fine to like attack the obstacle. Like it wasn't like I was gassed and like risking it too much by going early. But I was very mad at myself for missing that because I was like, missed opportunity. I went from like possible like 7th to 10th place on that one to like, let's say, I think it was like 17th or like something like that, 17th, which is like, you can't, like I needed those points because like I'm getting too close to the line. So if I had like an 8th place and then another like 8th or 9th place, like you're getting way more points than like in the 20s. And then I like missed executed that one. So that was like frustrating. And I was like, ugh. Then the last event that day was an echo bike and power snatch 21:59. Power snatch was somewhat irrelevant. Everyone's basically going unbroken there. Cycle rate is pretty similar within the athletes. So then it comes down to machine again. So like I'm not very good at the skier to press against some of them, and my machine work isn't as good. If you look at all the smaller girls, Kristen Holta, like the lighter girls, were a lot of them towards the back of that event. Christy Aramo towards the back of, like I think she got 35th in that. Holta was like 33rd. I think mine was like 22nd. Connors was in the back. Like it was a lot of the smaller, like you're just like, you can't match the Barnharts, the Horvaths, the taller girls that weighted like, I mean, Tia can, but I don't even count Tia in any of these. She's
in a league of her own.
Like I'm talking about like the rest of us. Like I'm just not matching them on the, I'm like middle back on the Echo bike. And like I said, I've gone better because I've worked so much on the machines over the past few years, working with my endurance coach, Rob Carson. Like he programs stuff all the time for us to do. Like he's awesome. Like I didn't do sports growing up that were like a lot of like machine stuff. So I mean, I've just gone better, but those girls are just better at me. I can't match the, like, and I like going in, I thought I was going at a good pace, and like I'm on the first Echo bike, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing great. Like this many RPMs, like I'm gonna be right within the pack, and then I'll make my move on the snatches. And I was like basically like the last one off the first Echo bike, and I was like, oh no, this is not gonna work. I can't catch up because I know you're just gonna slow down on the round of 15. And I was like, okay, maybe they'll slow down. And I feel like I can somewhat go like a little bit down, but no, they're still going. I was like, shit. Yeah, so another workout that was lost on a machine for me, like running, machine, swimming, and some mis-executed stuff. And then we get to the next day where it's the last event. Like I already know it's basically the last event for me. At that point, I'm in 26, like 42 points at that point. Like I need people to shit the bed basically, and like I gotta crush this event.
Like everybody that was like more running,
and everyone I'm trying to chase, they're probably better 5K runners than me. Like that event ended up being a 3 mile run for time. Like you look at the leaderboard, it was like, who's got the best 3 mile run? Almost, I'd say 90% of the field to 95 were unbroken on the 9 toast bars on the 30, 30, 30. Like I was one of the first ones on the toast bars done. Started my jog. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to push the run more than I want to because I just kept thinking about Lex in my head being like, you're gonna have to push it more than you want to. You're gonna want to stop, but you're gonna have to push it more because
because like going into it, like I already knew that the fastest girls were gonna have around like a sub or like 6 minute to 6:30 pace on their 5K. And like looking at Carolyne, like Carolyne could be around a 7:30. And it's like, how much faster can you run? Like you'd have to sell your soul and pretty much sprint the like, and you could do what you can. So like she did what she could.
So I was like one of the first ones off the toast bars from the group because my toast bars are really good, but that wasn't the workout. I started jogging, and then I'm like, okay, see if I can hold on. And then like I just saw right away, and like the girls were starting to pass me. I'm like, I cannot match what they're going at right now. And then you're just like, you start like coming back down because you're like, you can't match that. If you continue at that pace, you aren't even going to finish the workout. And I was like, okay, I guess I got to dial back a little bit, get back into the stadium. I'm like way behind in the workout, do my 30 unbroken, get to my last run, 30 unbroken. And at that point, I just sprinted to the finish line. There's my 100 meters that I wanted. I beat Pacelli off the run. But like it was a running 3 mile workout and more of the runners exceeded there. Like it wasn't as much about the gymnastics. So,
and then all of the good stuff started.
And then all the good stuff starts to come at the end of the weekend. And I'm like watching in the stands with Lex, and I'm like, oh, this is fun CrossFit stuff that I wanted to do.
Deadlifts, handstand push-ups.
Yeah, the deadlift, the free, because like I've done a lot of freestanding over the years. I used to always do them at the gym, actually with walking, freestanding, the parallel stuff. And then it was with deadlifts. Like a lot of the girls that were like good at the gymnastics got slowed down a little bit in the deadlifts, or they're good at the deadlifts got slowed down. Someone like Annie, who's very good at the deadlifts and very good at handstand, obviously excelled in that. Same with Tia, who's very good at both. The people who did very well are like people that had both. And I was like, oh, I wanted to do that one. And then the double under workout, they only had sets of 15 with the pegboard. I was like, now we're talking. 15. And it was a heavy rope. The yoke, I would have loved that event. I love GHDs. Like I can go pretty fast on GHDs. I love burpees, box jump stuff, and like legs. So I was like, darn, like the snatch, like not that great, but I just wish I had the whole weekend, because then I want to finish the whole weekend and then be like, okay, like, oh, and then the last one, the chest to bar one.
Oh, that would have been a good event.
I love chest to bars, like chest to bars, deadlifts, stuff like that. Didn't get a chance to do them though. So yeah, that's the frustrating part, is like a lot of things that I finally could have done well. I mean, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have executed because I just didn't have a good weekend, but like at the same time, like you just want to go there and do the full weekend and then be like, okay, you know what, if I finish 27th after all the events, at least, you know, it's like, okay, I got to work on machines, running, swimming. Mostly. Like there's a lot of other things too, but like that's what crushed me this weekend, is like machines, running, swimming, distance running. I didn't get a sprint, like a true sprint event like that. I don't even work too much on that because it's fine.
So this brings you into, and I mean, I saw actually you two got into it with some people online about this,
I got into it.
Yeah. You guys were both firing. You got dragged into the internet wars, but
Carolyne, the Karen.
Karen out there.
Well, yeah, and I'm completely on board with you guys, and I agree. Like, why have the cuts? It doesn't make sense to me. If you want to see who is the best, let everybody do all of it. Now, some people got online and started going on about, well, then why can't we have 10,000 views? And internet, don't be fucking stupid. But there's no reason you can't have all the women that are at the event do every different event.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
like when you look at a decathlon, they have 10 events. They're well known. You do all 10 because each one of them is different and purposeful within the whole weekend. I get that I had 10 events to try to do whatever and I got cut, whatever. I'm not going for the win. I'm trying to get top 20 and make money. Give me 5 more events. I still have a chance to get into that round. That's all I want, right? Like that's at the end of the day, like I'm not fighting for Tia. Like no. People were like, oh, you know, when you go to the Olympics, some people have a race that's like 10 seconds and they're eliminated, and you lose a soccer game, you're eliminated. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. That's sports. Fitness is different. You cannot cut in fitness events. If you're doing a fitness test, you need to do all tests. Because like, even if you test aerobic capacity, swimming, aerobic capacity, you do a swimming event, you do a long distance event, different winners will do well. You do a CrossFit style event, you have one athlete that can do very well at a certain CrossFit event. You give another type of CrossFit event and they could be almost last. Like it depends on what was programmed, the combination, the programming matters. So like we took a look at the first 10 events that I had, and like there was an even amount of like weightlifting to to monostructural to gymnastics movement across the 10 events that I got given. When you look at where was the meat of the workout one, like what was the workout? Was it more the run, or like 6 of the 10 were like monostructural base? I think 3 or 4 of them were like gymnastics component, and one of them was like the weightlifting. Like event 7 was like really like that was like it. So like I didn't think it was as balanced there, but when I actually take a look at the rest of them, when you actually look at the whole 15, it was actually a fairly balanced test within like all 3 of those things that CrossFit defines for fitness, which is the 3 modalities. And with a lot of, it still was very heavily skewed towards upper body pulling, like the pegboard, the chest to bars, the muscle ups, the kayak, the swim, the rope climb, pull. And not much squatting below parallel this weekend, which is like one of my biggest strengths too, as an athlete. So like, but like the programming matters. I just don't think you can eliminate. If you want to do cuts, I think invite less people. I'd rather them do 20 athletes from the get-go, bring the 20 best in the world, whatever you want, all the workouts, because then the point system changes. When you cut down to 30, they change the point system. So all of a sudden event 10 was worth more than any of the prior 9 events. So someone like Sam Briggs, who did, I think got a top 3 in that event, almost went from like, I think she was like 29 to 21st in one event. I, in 2019, benefited from that same thing that Sam almost did this time around. I was like in 19th place going into a sprinting event. The scoreboard had changed. I get a 2nd place in a sprint. I moved all the way up. Almost made the cut, like by like 11 points or something. I was making the cut to the top 10. So I almost benefited from the same thing from a pure sprinting event versus this one being weighted more. And then after event 10, event 11 to 15 were weighted more in points than the prior one. So you're basically saying those events are worth more than the kayak and swim, and which I don't think is right also. You can't say that one event is like a sprint is a certain test. Yeah, it doesn't take as long, but it's not any less or any more than another one. I don't know. So that's just how I think. And then there's something about like caps. I think that like, see, when I look at the decathlon, I don't know the whole scoring, but like times matter and stuff like that throughout every event to like accumulate points. Like some people are getting capped and aren't doing the same amount of work also prior. Like I think you should almost, I don't know, like, I mean, obviously timing wise of the event, it's not a perfect scoring system, but in terms of the definition of CrossFit, it makes no sense in a fitness test to do cuts, in my opinion. Like I don't even think there's an argument for it. Like when people are argumentating, are like saying stuff online, I'm like,
they're like comparing it to a football game.
I'm like,
and it's like not the same.
It's not the same. It's a fitness test. You do all the tests. Like if you say that this is the fitness test for 10 events, okay, then it stops at 10.
Like I know growing up in school, we had fitness tests, right? So it was like push-ups, sit-ups, sit and reach, run a mile. You never like sat out of any of those fitness tests to like determine how well you did.
Yeah.
Like you did every one of the tests.
And people will be like, oh, well, you had 10 events, 10 chances to make to make the cut. But I'm like, yes, I didn't I didn't get the job done, or whoever got cut on the 9th event didn't get the job done in those events. But though you can't tell me that some of those athletes can't affect the leaderboard on those other 6 or 5 events that are left, because we absolutely can. Cole Sager was the last athlete in for the top 20 male. He won the pegboard event and got 100 points the next event, which was worth more than any of the events prior. Had he not made the cut, he's not winning 100 points. He was literally just made it above Chandler Smith. He got 100 points on the next event. Like, I don't know what some of the girls could do. They could have won something. Maybe probably not. Tia's going to win. But you know, they're still taking points away at different spots. So like, people
and
are like,
there's money in the top
and there's
20.
money in the top 20. Like, you already took out all the money from the sanctionals from before and made it into a semifinal, which the maximum amount that you can win, which we still haven't even received yet, but we should receive at the end of the season, is $5,000 for first place, 4 for second, 3, 2, and 1 for fifth. You get to the games, it's all on your out-of-pocket stuff. Like, most of the athletes go to the games. Few of them are really contenders for like the podium. Most of the athletes, their goal is top 20. Why? Because that's where money is. Not much, but there's some money. At least you can cover your trip and more. So like, it just, you know, you want to finish the weekend doing everything that everyone else did and being like, okay, I finished this place. That's fine. I got to do the exact same workouts as everyone else. Like, when I look at my 2019, like 12th place, I still don't consider it 12th place in my head. So I'm like, okay, it's 12th place for 6 events. That's how I look at it. Because had I done the whole weekend, I could have been further back. I could have been further up. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just, it was 12th place for 6 events. It wasn't like, I didn't get to do everything. And I know girls behind me would have beat me in things and vice versa. Like, you don't get to do the full thing. Like, that's just how I think. It's not the same thing as a basketball game. And to announce the cuts 3 days before the comp is ridiculous to me. Like, that made me so mad, because I'm like, that stressed me out. It made me mad. You got people that was like already difficult to travel and stuff like that. Like, to me, like, I don't know, it's just not considerate. Like, you're not, like, you don't announce, like, when you go to a comp, you know what you're signing up for. You know you have a chance to get eliminated. You know, stuff like that. Like, would it change people if I'm coming? No, but it's just like, you want to know what you're signing up for. And it's like 3 days prior cut system. And then they elaborate. I'm like, depends what's going to be working. Like, what are the workouts in the first bit? Like, it could be good, it could be bad. Because like, from really like 10th to 35th, really, however many athletes, it really depends on the programming. The top 10 will be top 10, basically irrelevant. But for the rest of us, like, it does matter.
Yeah, your decathlon analogy is right on. I mean, you don't cut somebody after the first 5 events and then.
Yeah, you don't do 7 events and then you're like, oh, we'll continue with the rest. And the last 3 events are more important than the first 7.
Yeah.
Like, no, they're not. Like, but because they changed the score, all of a sudden there's more points between the athletes later on, which means that you're rewarded even more for a higher place. So, yeah.
Well, if CrossFit is all about seeing who's the most well-rounded athlete in all these different areas, then why are you basically saying that this is more important?
Exactly. So, like, from the pure definition of what it is and the sport, it makes no sense to me. And it's not even an argument. It's just people on the internet that don't understand the sport, and they're like, yeah, we don't want to see the last heats. I get that. Whatever. You don't want to see the last heats compete, then don't invite them. Like, invite a number that are taken through the whole test, and that's it. Like, it's a fitness test. These are the fitness tests. No test is worth more than another. This is it. Let's see the ranking, and an accurate ranking after all is said and done.
I think they do stuff like this, and obviously, again, it's just drama. They just want to create this artificial drama that they do not need to create, because the actual events and athletes will create the drama on their own. You don't need to manufacture it. It's no different than, and I mean, I don't know Dave Castro, but the reveals of some of these events, and it's just like.
But then now you're trying to make it like a reality TV show, and like,
that's what yeah,
instead of an athletic event.
Yeah, that
like
too.
The Bachelor, do you accept this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, like, everything is a show. So like some of the events are put in a certain way for the spectacle of the games, which is like a big factor too. It's a seller. But like one of the things that they want for the cuts is like in terms of timing wise, they don't have the time to do certain things a certain way. But like to me, it's like what's the rush also to do everything within a certain amount of like of time too? Like you could spread it out, you could make it work somehow. Like that it's inaccurate.
Yeah. Well, to your point, like with the like theatrics, like look at the handstand walk. Like you had the handstand walk circus event.
Yeah.
Then you had handstand push up or freestanding handstand push ups
with a handstand walk.
And you had wall walk. So you had like 3 events where it was all like what you can do with your hands, kind of like circusy.
Yeah, like as much as I would have liked to have done the deadlift handstand push-up, looking at it from the stands, I was like, this looks dumb right now.
Like you could do freestanding
like
in one spot.
It just looked like we were just a bunch of break dancers on their heads, like starting from the head position. Like it looked weird. It looked like a circus show. Like as much as I wanted to do it, because I knew like it was gonna be probably one of my better events of the weekend. I just thought it looked off. I don't know. But then like you look at the other handstand walk, I think that looks cool, like the handstand walk obstacle. But again, it is very like circusy, like what are we testing? You know, what are we testing it? Like I get it's the balance, the accuracy, the agility, like, you know, but what, like, where do we stop? Like that's my only like question as an athlete. That's like, sure, I can do it, I'm pretty good at it, but I don't know if it's testing, I guess, my balance, my gymnastics skill, but at the same time I'm like just being realistic. Like what are we doing here?
Me as a fan,
just because like I know I grew up as an athlete, like I like athletic things, like I don't know.
Yeah.
I just it's frustrating sometimes that I feel like I can't showcase some of the like things that I can do with my body, but it's just not in the testing.
I don't want to watch you guys in the CrossFit Games do swimming. If I want to watch swimming, I'll watch swimmers. I don't really care to watch you guys do gymnastics. I'll watch gymnasts. I want to see you guys do CrossFit. I want to see you guys selling out and just pouring everything out that you have, crashing across the line. That's what I want to see when I watch CrossFit. I don't want to see you guys.
I mean, I love the like odd objects, like the pig flip, the sleds, all that is like, that's CrossFit. Like, that's great. Like, that's what you don't see other places, right? That's still like, to me, that's still like CrossFit. Some of the other things is like very specific skill stuff from other sports that it's like, I don't know.
And that's exactly what you hit in. It's not fitness, it's skill oriented, right? And that's where I feel about all of those other, what I would call gimmicky events. They don't fit in. That's not what I tune in to see. I don't really want to see you guys do a 500-meter dash. I don't care, other than Sam Briggs, because I'll watch Sam Briggs run anywhere, because she just looks, and I've said this last time, she looks like she's trying to hurt the pavement. I love Sam Briggs. She's awesome.
I love Sam Briggs.
But yeah, that stuff. And I think honestly, you know, it comes down to, you know, from the outside looking in, it looks like it's Castro's ego where he wants to make it. And Bethany said it right, a reality show of it. And yeah, it bugs me.
People love it, and people want to watch it. People pay to see it.
So mentally, this is all said and done. You watch the rest of it. How is your mindset now going into next year, and what's your takeaway from the whole event now?
Mentally, I mean, it's just like, it was a disappointing weekend in terms of like where my expectations were, I guess, on some of like, it's hard to like, you don't want, like, I don't expect a certain number, because that's not going to define anything. Like, it just like, if you're not better at people, then you're not better at things. Like, you can't control that. But I felt like I didn't execute on a few of them that I wanted to. So I just kind of felt like unfinished, not unfinished, but like it didn't reflect how I felt my fitness was. I didn't get to showcase some of my like strengths as an athlete that I know that I have, and they weren't programmed. Like I can't control what was programmed. I took this past week off, basically fully. I was very lazy. But also like working out. I can't be a couch potato, so I'm gonna start back up tomorrow. I mean, the goal is again to qualify next year, do better. The main takeaway from what I need to work on again is swimming, middle to long distance running, and all of my machine work. Ski erg, echo bike. Rowing is actually fine. And then bike erg probably. Like the machine power output stuff there. Just to kind of suffer a little bit more in training on those. Yeah, gymnastics and weightlifting, just kind of like keep working on those. The next comp I would like to qualify for is the Rogue Invitational. That's going to be very competitive and hard to qualify for. So that's also why I can't sit on my butt for too long. So I feel like with the comp being in October, end of October, some sort of qualifier is going to be within the next month or so, which is why I need to like prepare for that too. So I'd like to do the Rogue Invitational and then get ready for the Open and stuff after that. It's kind of hard to do like Dubai and stuff. Like I teach. I can't take like a week off work or 2 weeks off work.
Anyway, that's all I got. Beth, do you have anything else for Carolyne and Alex?
No, that's good. Thank you so much for joining us. It was awesome to hear about your games experience. We look forward to hearing you qualify for the Rogue Games, and we'll follow along and see how you do there.
Thank you. And the